Picture an organization chart. Blocks filled with names and lines drawn from the top execs all the way down to the most junior team members. Now imagine flipping that chart on its head. CEO at the bottom, supporting everyone above them. It feels a lot better, right? This is the world Joe Palm and Mike Moss would like to create, and they've written a book to help make it happen. Practical Servant Leadership. People-first strategies to create value in a profit-obsessed world. This is not a feel-good book. It's a do-good book with tips and strategies to help leaders become servant leaders. It's a direct challenge to the ethos of shareholder primacy, made popular by former GE CEO Jack Welch and normalized by pretty much every damn CEO since. The reason Wall Street goes gaga when companies announce layoffs, and why so many of us feel helpless in the face of insane corporate work policies. It doesn't have to be this way. Servant leadership has been proven to improve profits, productivity, and performance. And Joe and Mike have come up with ways to make it work no matter where you sit on that org chart. But let's be clear, big and lasting change will only happen when top leaders commit to it. Who will lead the way? Well, I've had a number of guests on this podcast who are already doing it. Mark DeMassimo, Mike Wolfson, Andrew Goodwin, Everett Reese, Veronique James, Gina Reese, Michelle Edelman, Jason Fried, Ryan Berman, some of the best Desuckifiers I know. If you're ready to join them, let's talk. I'd love to have you on the show as well. Welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast, the show where we cut through the BS and find ways to make work more fun, more human, and less ridiculous. All of which makes your business more profitable, by the way. If you enjoy this one, please like, share, rate, review, or subscribe to the podcast. Let the desuckifying begin. Here's Joe and Mike. Okay, Joe Palm, Mike Moss, welcome to the DesuckifyWork podcast.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you guys again. As our loyal listeners will know, you guys have been on the show before, each separately, way back, probably in the first 10 episodes for each of you. But it's fun to bring you guys back on again. You guys have got a joint project you're working on together, so we're going to dive into that, and it'll just be fun to kind of hear what's been going on with you guys in the last couple of years. So I'll start with you, Joe. What's going on in your world?
Oh, a lot of things. So it's been really fun collaborating with Mike over this book we're trying to get done. It looks like we're going to be able to publish it in the next couple of weeks, finally.
Nice.
But writing a book has been a lot more of an endeavor, a lot bigger one than I expected. And even getting it published as a self-publisher is just as much a heavy lift as anything else. Figuring out all that and the different publishing platforms and everything. So it's been really working on the book. It's been architecting a new system that is supporting everything the book writes about. And I'm going to be speaking at a HR conference in Orlando on April 8th. Been on some other podcasts and have some other speaking engagements lined up. So it's been really fun. Awesome. And my cats have been, of course, not very obedient, but all I got to do is sit there somewhere and start writing with my laptop, and all of a sudden I have 4 cats on my lap.
That's how it works. That's the signal that they wait for, is the clackety clack of the keys. And then
that's right. And they're hurting me, just for the record. You talk about hurting cats, but they're hurting me.
Of course. Well, we appreciate that they're doing their job. Mike, what's going on in your world?
I caught Joe chasing a laser one time when I just was getting on the Zoom.
Yeah.
As he does.
What's going on,
Yes.
Joe?
Today I will get that red dot. Yes, I will.
Yes. So, Mike, you're working obviously with Joe on the book. What else is going on in your world?
Since we last talked, I probably look and sound healthier than I did, because I haven't worked in a full-time job in a couple of years. So
yeah,
I'm feeling light and clear-headed. But yeah, writing with Joe. And after that, I'm planning on doing my own thing on writing.
Nice.
I've wanted to write something for a long time, and I'm finally going to do it this year.
Awesome.
And I'm doing some stuff on the side with trying to do some consulting in the AI space with a couple of brilliant data scientists that I know.
Awesome.
Looking at some consulting in that space, and then whatever comes out of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome. It's Yeah, a couple of years off of work will reset the system from the always on cortisol rich environment that most of us are used to from the work world. And I know you guys are kind of teeing up a bit of a solution here. And Joe, I want to just touch in with you because I know when we talked last time, we were talking about servant leadership. And I'm curious for you, like what ultimately kind of drove you to say, like, it's time to grab Mike and write a book about this?
Yeah, well, okay, so that's a great question. I was going to retire. I didn't want any trouble, you know. But then I knew, based on all the discoveries I had made in the corporate arena over a 40-year plus career, that if I didn't write something about the how amazing servant leadership is to mitigate a lot of the problems in the corporate arena, I
Yeah.
knew I would be kicking myself the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I decided to leave a pretty lucrative job as VP of Business Development for a company that helps startups succeed, and bite the bullet and just start writing.
Mm,
As I got into it, I started reaching out to Mike and collaborating with him and realizing that with his expertise in people analytics and the science behind everything, and my experience with all the stories and anecdotes and all the the experiences proving the efficacy of servant leadership, it was a really good synergistic blend, between Mike and I. And I asked him to formally join me in getting this book done. Yeah, so I guess one of the things that I discovered is that if you have a Venn diagram and you have a lot of your key performance indicators for business, reducing attrition, increasing margin, helping employees feel engaged, customer loyalty, all those things, servant leadership is in the middle of all that.
mm, okay.
So it really is the root cause of a lot of very wonderful things that can happen. And it mitigates a lot of things that people just have come to see as gravity in the corporate arena, which is that it sucks. And it's filled with all these bullies running amok with impunity.
Hmm.
There's nothing's being done about it. If you try, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
And all that stuff is really happening. So I thought, I gotta get something out there to serve these people and give some practical help. I also found that with servant leadership, a lot of the training and so-called training out there in a lot of the books had to do with mindsets and principles and let's contemplate our navel and all that kind of stuff. And as I worked with executives over the years, I found they don't really have time to go to the bathroom, let alone take deep breaths and contemplate their navels. So
Yeah.
they want
Fair.
something practical.
Yeah.
And so I approach this as something where we're going to fill a gap here. And
Hmm.
so the name of the book is called Practical Servant Leadership, and the subtitle is People First Strategies to Create Value in a Profit Obsessed World.
Mm, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. And that's why I wrote it. And they say that writing a book is like feeding a monster through the slats of a cage. And once you publish it, you're opening the cage door.
Well, well, excellent. So get ready in the next couple of weeks here that the monster will be out. Maybe one of the Sasquatches
Yeah.
from the Asheville area will be.
Yeah. And at some point, TJ, I would like to share some things kind of teeing up the scope of the problem and how
Yeah.
servant leadership helps. But
Yeah.
I'm ready whenever you are. So you
Yeah.
drive.
Well, let's come back to that in a second. I want to just ask you both. I'll start with you, Mike. This is the Desuckify Work podcast. You mentioned work sucking. I'm curious, like from each of your perspectives, like what is the biggest factor that makes work suck?
From an experiential, like not what causes it, but
Yeah, just like when you're in it, what's the worst thing you think, or the biggest thing?
for me, what I found was just the lack of real vigilance with among leaders in terms of protecting people's time.
Mm,
Instead, it was the opposite. It was like
yeah,
there's never too much, everything that when a leader requested something, no one ever asked when they need it, like high level, because we got a lot of requests. It's
yeah,
assumed it's right now. You've
hmm,
got 97 other things going on.
yeah,
And it was, as we kind of joked around before, when you see a job that says must be able to work in a fast-paced environment, juggle multiple responsibilities,
Yeah.
pivot, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It's telling you you're going to be running to this side of the ship, then that one, then this one, then that.
Yeah.
And it's not for it's for personal reasons. It's not for,
Right.
for the good of the
Strategic
organization.
business reasons. Yeah.
So for me, that complete lack of any kind of, there's no dignity
Yeah.
at work. It's just, you just need to just jump and do whatever. And this is where burnout comes from. Burnout isn't from working really, really hard. It's working from really, really hard on something that you do not feel like is valuable.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I feel that. I think a lot of people feel that. Like I coach people, and I think that's what most people are feeling, is some
yeah,
version of that. Some are extremely burned out. Some are like kind of numbed by it, which is maybe another symptom of burnout. But it is that thing. It's like the usually coming all the way from the C-suite, the sort of dictate around, hey, I need you to do this. And what's interesting is I think there's a few different reasons why that happens, right? Sometimes it's just like it came to them and they just did it and they didn't really think about it, right? And they didn't think that to just clearly mention, hey, this is the thing I want done. Please don't shove your other projects off to the side. I'm going to give you a timeline when I'd like to check in first. Like they're just not thinking of that. And then I think there's probably the slightly more, negative view, which could be that some people just really enjoy power, and I pictured your kind of ship metaphor, and somebody's up in the captain's tower and they're just enjoying kind of like throwing something to the left and then
save
throwing.
me, feed me leaves. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's probably both
No, it's
sides
just,
of
look,
that.
they need something. They want it now.
Yeah.
Is it urgent? Really? No.
Yeah.
But
It
I'm
feels
going to
good.
ask for it and just, let them do whatever, and
Yeah. It feels
different
good, right?
environments.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think,
I guess I'm gonna have to ask you to work the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Well, and I think, TJ, as I've said before, I think on this show,
yeah.
you know, really dawned on me when I read this book by David Geller on Jack Welch
Yeah.
that this is all being driven by shareholder primacy. In the
Yeah.
80s, laws started to change. Welch and other CEOs went and lobbied for change. And in the 50s and 60s, we had companies that valued employees. We had pensions. We had campuses where families could use recreation centers and
Yeah.
whatnot. They had management training. What do we have now? What's the contract between employees and employers?
At will.
You get nothing. You get paid, you get overworked, and then we might fire you because we need to meet a number this quarter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
pulling the thread through, is the lack of any concern for me as a person
Yeah.
in that environment, right?
Yeah.
Your last
Yeah.
guest talked a little bit about this, the machine owning you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that the trick is like, it becomes really hard, no matter how good of a person you are, to hold the idea of, valuing your employees, all that, right? When the incentives are all pulling you in the other direction, right? So I think a lot of folks, and I've even talked to some where it's like you get to that C-suite, you're the CEO, you're running this organization, and you maybe even said, like, I'm going to be different. Like, I care about these things. And then you've got, the board, screaming at you, and you've got the numbers showing up on your desk every morning. And it's just, you're like, I can't survive if I don't do all the things. And all the things are, basically what you just said, right? And ignoring that value. So I don't really know, why, like, we're stuck in this place. Like, I'm sure there's lots of reasons. And in some ways, I don't necessarily care because we're just here. I'm curious, Joe, first to get your take on, like, if there's something different that you feel like that also makes work suck, but then maybe there's an opportunity for you to kind of talk a little bit about some of the background of what it looks like when we're here and what servant leadership can start to do if it's actually implemented properly and practically, as your book says.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the from my perspective, one of the key things, and science really backs this up, TJ, but one of the key reasons why we're in this situation we're in is because there's a lack of people feeling like they're thriving, and they don't feel respected, they don't feel cared for, they don't feel like anybody's interested in them. They are a golf club. and they are going to get swung to whack the ball down the fairway. Period.
Mm.
Oh, but people are our best resource.
Yeah.
What's going to really change is when companies and leaders, because I don't want to get all, I mean, the company itself, the structure is an engine. I'm holding people accountable to this, the leaders, not just the company, some big vague, engine out there.
Right.
But when they start really seeing that their people aren't their best resource, they're their best work.
Mm. Yeah.
And they focus on their people and they help create environments where their people are thriving. A lot of times, too, people don't feel like they're having any fun at work. They don't feel like they're able to innovate. They don't have time to go to the bathroom, let alone have some margin in their work schedule to think about how to do things differently. And then if they think of something, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Don't you have work to do? Why are you thinking? Can you please stop that?
Yeah.
Or I have a great idea, but they don't believe there's any system there that can really manage that thing through implementation. They don't. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Okay, so what are we going to do today? It gets blown off.
Yep.
So with servant leadership, we're really changing the whole paradigm by focusing on people as the lead measure to the business results of the lag measure.
Okay.
The deer hunter wants the antlers of a deer. They don't aim for the rack; they aim for the heart. Then they get the rack.
Right.
And if you're trying to do a diet, and trying to lose some weight, you don't just step on the scale every day. You got to focus on the lead measure of diet and exercise.
Right.
And in the same way, if business leaders are not directly adding business value in their companies,
Yeah.
the way they add value is by focusing on serving their team, which is the entity that is creating the value.
Okay.
So, would this be an okay time to kind of share a couple stats?
Yeah.
Or do you
Yeah. I'd like to kind of hear what you're seeing. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, and this is some of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing, because now these are pretty recent stats here, just a few.
Okay.
Employees trust their company corporate leadership. Only 1 in 5 trust their corporate leadership. And 57% of people left their companies because they felt disrespected at work.
Sure. Yeah.
The cost of the money lost globally every year from disengaged employees is $438 billion. That's more than I make in a week, by the way.
Hard to believe, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then the annual cost of one toxic employee, Robert Sutton, the professor of Stanford, calls them the assholes.
Yeah.
$160K. And if they have 50 people in their constellation that they're working with, that goes up to 4 million, and that's without legal fees.
Wow. So you mean the bully or the toxic employee, their cost is scaled by affecting a team of 50. It scales up to
Absolutely.
like 4 million.
It scales, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and when one person leaves, you can pretty much say the cost of that is 1.5 times their annual salary to replace them.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a huge deal. And toxic cultures, a toxic culture is 10 times more predictive of turnover than compensation.
Yeah.
And then only 21% of workers globally are actively engaged at work. That's according to Gallup survey in 2024.
Yeah.
That's some of the scale of this problem here.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild, right? Obviously, to hear those numbers. Yeah. It's both, unfortunately, not all that surprising to hear some of them. And yet there's clearly this gap, right? So you're describing an opportunity for businesses, right? You're saying, people are the lead measure. And if you improve those numbers by even 10 or 15%, it would have a back end effect of something significant enough that everybody, including the board that's breathing down your neck, would go, that's pretty neat, right? But it's not happening, right? What's in that gap? I mean, I don't know, what is preventing folks from taking this leap if it so clearly can lead to these kinds of better outcomes?
Well, that's not that doesn't have a simple answer. There are a lot of factors, but at the core, I'm going to go back to what Mike said before: shareholder primacy.
Yeah.
This is something that is core to the corporate arena, is that we have shareholder primacy, and everything is judged based on numbers. And so
Hmm.
everybody has to suck it up and just support the numbers. And
Yeah.
then what Jack Welch did, thank you, Mr. Welch, is he actually scaled, because for a while it appeared successful, but he actually scaled and taught and mentored according to quarterly results from companies. Meet your
Yeah.
numbers every quarter, period. You find a way.
Yeah.
And out of that, you lop heads, you do whatever you need to do to meet your numbers, because everything is about the shareholder primacy and the quarterly results.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think
So,
everybody is pretty aware of that in a corporate environment, the quarterly numbers, the quarterly numbers, the quarterly
Yeah.
numbers. What I wonder, and I'm not sure, Mike, if you have a perspective on this, but like what what would make me as a CEO say, okay, I'm going to look at the quarterly numbers because they're a nice like indicator of health of the company to some degree, but I'm not going to sort of treat them with the religious fervor that I currently treat them with. Like, what would invite me to start thinking longer term? I mean, is it we've got to sort of rip the system out by the heart, or can some of the stuff that you guys are working on in this book at least start to shift mindset around this?
I feel strongly that um, this is really hard to do in, let's say, a Fortune 500 company
Yeah.
if it doesn't start at the top.
Yeah.
Joe and I were just talking about this. You can make some changes, you can have some impact. I feel like eventually it runs in, you collide.
Yeah.
It's like you need to cut people. You've been spending time building trust. Now all of a sudden you're going to cut like 3 people on your 10 people team.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to impact trust.
Sure.
But there's a million different things. There's a rush request from a leader that doesn't really have to be done now, but
Yeah.
I need you to work the weekend to do it.
Yeah.
So, honestly, I think it's two things that there has to be a desire for long-term value, not just short-term.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you are able to take a long-term view, you can build something really special
Yeah.
with great people who care about the company. If you have that short-term view, it's in and out, it's just get the job done, and
Yeah.
it's people are running past fire buildings on fire to fix leaky toilets.
Mm-hmm.
So, and honestly, I believe in society in general. Going back to Nick Rickmeyer saying the machine owns you.
Yeah.
It's like companies own us, we get nothing and be happy about it. Like
Right.
more and more, E.
Mm-hmm.
coli deaths are going up since 1980 from our
Mm.
food supply.
Well.
Boeing planes are crashing into the ground and doors are flying off planes,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, we have to, I think, take a step back and say, what about humanity?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing how I always talk about how you walk into a corporate office, Fortune 500, right? Suddenly, things that would never be okay outside are like completely normal, as you were talking about. It's like everyone just smiles and we're all for, why?
Yeah.
It's because there's the contract is you're going to do what we want you to do. You're gonna always be positive. You're gonna no matter what, you're
Mm.
gonna drink the Kool-Aid, and
Yeah.
if not, you're gonna go away.
Yeah. So if I'm,
But I just think there's a real value. There are examples where when companies put a priority on their people,
yeah.
and of course it's not always perfect. You have to fire people who aren't performing and things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
But if you can truly do that, I believe we are at a time where you will have a competitive advantage that's unbelievable. I've talked to so many people recently that are just so fed up with the layoffs and all this, that are
Yeah.
obviously accelerating recently.
Yeah.
People will take less to go somewhere where they feel like a person
Mm-hmm.
that matters,
Yeah.
and that they're just treated fairly, not
Yeah.
not to mention like the company's greatest asset.
Yeah. I mean, I did that a few times in my career where I was in a place and it was just, I mean, you talk about corporate bullies, there was some of that going on. And I, absolutely like pick the phone up, talk to a recruiter. I'm like, I'm willing to take X% less if you can get me the fruck out of here
Right.
because this is killing me. Right. And it's like, and I think, okay, so that's true. So there's a little bit of belief, I think, on the worker level that like I'm willing to make changes. What is the thing that you're noticing that if I'm a CEO and I'm in a large organization, what I see the stats, right? That's part of it, but stats often don't motivate, right? There's like you need to kind of get into the gut of somebody. What's the story that gets somebody who's running an organization, has all that pressure to at least, again, kind of go like, I'm sort of feeling the effects of this crap system I'm in. I don't like it, even though I'm doing it. I'm willing to at least take a look. What is that story? What is that aha moment for somebody?
To make them want to ask that question.
Yeah.
Joe, do you have an answer to that?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to kind of give you a chance first, but
No, go ahead, because I'm not sure what my answer would be.
yeah, and I'd like to also touch on and extend some of the things Mike was saying earlier. The quandary I faced when I even approached this book was, am I going to try to scrub a mud floor, you know, by writing a book like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And is it going to be in an echo chamber? Is it going to be something that people are like, yeah, that's wonderful Nirvana, but toss it and sell it for five cents at a rummage sale?
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me that as I approached that question and as I thought about some of the experiences I had with teams,
Yeah.
I mean, there's one that comes to mind, and I'll just kind of share it quickly.
Yeah.
There was a guy that I worked with. He was a VP, and he had a go-to person. Oftentimes these are like the chief of staff because
Sure.
they're pit bulls.
Yeah.
They know how to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
He had this person who was his go-to person, and he was supposed to lead an initiative that was like the second highest strategic initiative in the company behind COVID at the time. So this was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And I talked to him, and he said, and I was his coach. And the company was trying to do as many things agile as possible. And I had built specifically when I coached teams on the foundations of servant leadership and the practices of them.
Okay.
He knew that, but he said, you know what, this is so big, I can't afford to take any chances. I'm going to give it to this person, and they'll just kick ass and take names and get it done. I'm like, that's interesting.
Okay.
If things go south, and the executives press you on your framework that you used for this, what are you going to say?
Mm-hmm.
That you gave it to Jim and Jim botched it? Yeah, I don't know. Well, they're wanting everybody to do things as much agile as possible. So how about if I'm your coach and I'll work with Jim and I'll get him up to speed on how to do things according to agile, and we will found everything on servant leadership, because that's very compelling.
Yeah.
He said, okay, let's try that. Fast forward. 3 months later, the team had done about 100 production implementations of their software with 0 defects. They came in millions of dollars under budget and 2 months ahead of schedule. And their annual savings year over year was in the double-digit million. From what they. So there were executives at the highest level that were told of this story. And they were like, wow, that's remarkable. How did they do this? And we actually wrote the company's first ever case study on servant leadership because this leader I work with told the team, everybody, you are there to support and serve your team. If you are a leader around these people, we are all banding together to serve this team. We're going to do this on servant leadership. And then we worked on architecting their framework for how they would do the work.
Yeah.
Okay, after that. It was incredibly successful. But
Yeah.
to Mike's point, TJ, this is what you need. You need anecdotal evidence like that in
I
your
feel like you
environment.
do. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because there are the stats, and the stats are great because at some point somebody's going to have to show somebody some stats or something like that. Like that's
Yeah.
important. But when I hear a story like that, it at least it's like I can picture myself like, oh, okay, somebody's actually done this thing, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like within that organization, like maybe others kind of were sniffing around, like maybe I should try something like it because it seems like it's the secret sauce that started to unlock things. So what I'm hearing a little bit is as a leader with a position of power, VP, higher, whatever, you have to be willing to both take on a little bit of what feels like risk, even though when you do it right, it's not, but you have to
Yep.
be willing to sort of take that. And then you have to be willing to stay with it, right? Because
Yeah.
that's part of it too, right? If there's going to be bumps in the road, a day doesn't go the way you want it to, and you might be like, sweep that servant leadership crap away. It's time to go back to authoritarian, you know, goodness to what I'm used to. So I'm curious at like, is that part of it too, to help people stay in it when life isn't perfect, to kind of go, like how do people stay in that trust that the process is going to work when it's early and it's not perfect?
Yeah, well, you start by small experimentation and you keep building on it.
Okay.
And this is the fundamental difference between the book we're writing and what's out there already on the market is
Yeah.
that we're not talking about mindsets and theories. We touch on that, of course, we have to.
Yeah.
We are presenting several experiments they can try so that they can gather the empirical data they need and make the discoveries they need to make about
Mm,
the efficacy of what we're advocating so
got
that
it.
they can continue building on that and over time become more of a servant leader. Okay,
Mm,
based on evidence, not based on just I'm going to throw myself off this cliff and see what happens here.
mm,
So it's all evidence based, and we're also because we didn't want to write a book that was just like, okay, do A, B, and C, and you're a servant leader. You know,
yeah.
we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that they're equipped with some practical things they can try to build their base of convincing data for themselves.
Okay. So they're sort of picking a few things off the menu at first and trying them, and then they see that the world doesn't fall apart, and then they
Yeah.
go and maybe even, some of their team members are showing up in a way that they're a little happier with, and then they go, okay, I'm going to start bringing in the full menu. And then, the thing you mentioned that's interesting to me is, so there's the mindset and the theoretical and all that, and then there's the practical, right? What is it, like underneath all of that? I'm curious if there's a definition for servant leadership that you have that sits a little different than what people might have heard, because it's one of those terms that sort of defines itself, but I feel like there's probably a little more to it. I'm going to jump to you, Mike, real quick, just to see if you have a thought on that.
Well, so here's one of the complications when it comes to measurement, which Joe and I have been talking about a lot.
Yeah.
Leadership is what's called a construct, right? It's not something you can watch and observe and say, oop, there's one, there's
Yeah.
two, like shooting foul shots, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to define it first,
Yeah.
right? And then you have to basically, if you're going to build any tests around it or whatever, you have to validate it. So there's slightly different views, right? And about servant leadership itself. So there's no
Yeah.
one single definition, but
Yeah.
the one that I think resonates the most is not so much a definition, but if you look at leadership, instead of sitting on the top of the pyramid,
Mm-hmm.
flip it upside down.
Yeah.
Your goal is to make sure everybody in your shadow is equipped, valued, trust you,
Mm-hmm.
safe environment,
Yeah.
and are growing. It's
Hmm.
your job to make sure they're meeting personal and organizational goals, and you're doing whatever you can to help them, not sitting on the throne saying, feed
Yeah.
me, bathe me. Here's
Yeah. I
some
mean,
milk, Earl.
That's kind of a wild concept. I mean, even just from a visual perspective, I mean, you talk about sort of storytelling and the impact of that. I think about the impact of a visual, right? If I saw an org chart and the CEO is at the bottom and then everybody came up from that, just as like an immediate gut reaction, how different that is than the thing we're used to seeing. We've been seeing it for however long we've been working. We've seen those org charts and you're soaking that in, right? You are soaking the belief that, yeah, that person on the top is on the top. They are the best and they have all the power and all that stuff. And when you shift it, again, you have to live it, but at least as a starting point, day one, hey, here's the org chart for the organization. That already shows me something. And then if you go, here's how we work here. How we work here is, hey, you're being hired as a director of whatever. That means your team also sits above you on the org chart. And here's what that means in terms of how you show up. And I imagine you guys outline a lot of that in terms of the book, meaning, okay, I'm being brought into this organization somewhere in a position of leadership, maybe not at the top. What are you asking of me in a servant leadership run organization? What is my job description, so to speak, look like? And how is it maybe different than the standard, hey, you're the director or the VP of whatever?
So in the book, we highlight 5 things, and this is the way I started working with Joe on the book. I was originally a reviewer because we had a relationship from our previous jobs where we knew we were both into servant leadership.
Yeah.
So he asked me to review her. In his first chapter, he described servant leadership, and there were like 21 characteristics. Now, my background in industrial and organizational psychology about defining a construct. How do you define it? You can't have, it's not 21 things, most likely. Yeah. And those things kind of were overlapping. So, I think my biggest contribution to the book was going to the research and helping Joe frame, a model for his stuff.
Yeah.
And where we landed was servant leadership being 5 things. It's earning trust of your employees, demonstrating that you value employees, creating a psychologically safe environment so people are willing to try things and innovate and not terrified to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Growing your people, like you want them to leave your team eventually and move on.
Yeah.
And then the last is enabling your team any way possible, whether it's resources, whether it's jumping in and helping out, whether it's giving them more time, whether it's, taking care of obstacles that are in their way, whatever it is, that's the final piece. And the biggest is the earning trust. And I think Joe would agree, but you have to have trust. Without that, the others don't work as well. So that's the way we define it. Is those 5 things, and all the models are similar
variations on that. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening. If you're liking what you hear and like the idea of making work not suck, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. What role is work playing in your life right now? Let's talk about it. Okay, back to the show. I would like the simplification down to 5, first of all, and they're all weighty. Each one of those 5 things feels like, oh, that's not just a thing I check off the list in a day, right? Earning trust is a great example, right? You can't just show up and say, trust me, and there's no hacks to these things, right? So much of leadership books and all that stuff, they're hacks and they're these little things and they're surface level. And what I hear in this is like, you actually have to be this person. And that's this interesting thing. And you had mentioned, Joe, kind of like that you didn't want it to be just like, do these 3 things because it's the opposite of servant leadership, basically, right? If you're coming in, and you're just
it's like you're trying to earn trust, and how you do that, there could be a million different things that you can do.
Right.
There are things you do every day that send signals that you're trustworthy.
Yeah.
Until you break that, right?
Yeah.
And it's a building of that over time. Like any relationship.
Yeah.
It's you're taking a step back, and instead of looking at this as like, all these people are here to do what I want.
Right.
It's how can I make all these people successful so that we're all successful? It's that mindset shift. And to your point, I don't think just anybody can do it. You have to want to be different. You have to want to do something that is special, I think. Say, I'm not going to Mahatma Gandhi, be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't, there's certain places where I think eventually it can't work.
Mm.
If you are in a toxic environment, you can do it for a while, but you're going to run into crossroads where you cannot be straight up with your people. You can't
Yeah.
be as fair as you want or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's why I believe the most effective version of it is where it really starts from the top.
Yeah.
Because then you're selecting people from the
Mm-hmm.
top
Yeah.
down with the same like mindset. You're creating a culture. It's an
Mm-hmm.
all-in culture. This guy, Bob Chapman, was former CEO of Barry Webmiller Engineering Solutions Company.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was first faced with layoffs
Mm-hmm.
early in his career, he said, it was killing him. He didn't
Yeah.
want to lay people off. And what he decided was, he said he got the board to agree, we're going to offer a month of unpaid leave for everybody in the organization so we don't have to fire anyone.
Wow.
And he said, and I really recommend everyone read about this because it really tells you this is possible. You just have to
Mm-hmm.
want to do it. And it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And he said what happened from there was amazing. The way people reacted,
Mm-hmm.
they supported each other like, well, you know, someone needed to work, so someone else gave them their unpaid leave. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, you know, they took their unpaid leave. They let them
Yeah.
go off and they worked, but
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they let them work so they could make money.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, as we did more and more of that, you saw people start to treat each other like family,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and go out of their way for the business in ways they hadn't seen before. And it was all because this guy just wanted to be different. He didn't want to, he's like, these are people, they have
Right.
lives. I don't want to. So it's
Mm.
hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard to do. What's easy, the path of least resistance, is just keep going the way we go.
Yeah. You
And
play
there's
like.
evidence that our biggest companies are disproportionately led by psychopaths and sociopaths. So that's a problem.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because that stat, again, it sort of makes sense because the system that you're plugging into, it rewards that behavior. Like, you talked about this idea of corporate bullies, and I think back to an example in my career where I showed up at a new job, and there was someone there who was very much a bully, and I was like, why is this person here? This is sort of ridiculous. And I quit this job fairly soon because I was like, I don't want this. And to your point, I didn't see a path through. I didn't see how I could really make a change. But I basically put it out there like, if that person is here, I can't be here, you know? And there was this subtle, naive hope in my head that they'd go, oh, get rid of that person and we love you so much. Yeah, that didn't happen. But what I eventually figured out by talking to different people was they wanted that person there because that person was serving that kind of a system. If you have a system that's built on shareholder primacy and quarterly results and getting stuff done, you talked about whether it's the chief of staff kind of role or whatever. This was that kind of a person. This was the pit bull that you could just send in and just scare the crap out of people into getting stuff done. Right. And so that's the framework we're in. And of course, those people then get rewarded and eventually get C-suite titles and all that stuff. For the most part, again, there's plenty of good people, disclaimer.
Yeah.
Disclaimer.
And 67% of employees in this country do not trust HR to take their issues to HR.
Yeah, right. Well, HR is in the same system, right?
I met a lady last year who was very distraught, and she was coming off a bad situation in her work. She had been a contract analyst for 24 years for a company based in the Twin Cities, and for a med tech company. She was really good at what she did. And she had gone through 8 bosses in that period because of acquisitions. The final one she had, the most recent one she had, was really a jerk. He was a brutal dictator and a terrorist. And she, as a contract analyst, documented facts about what he was doing and the choices he was making in treating people, violating policy, all those things. She had 20.
Yeah.
She finally went to HR to express her concerns, and 2 days later she was terminated.
Yep.
And he's still there.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stories like that. I mean, I've
Yeah.
done HR in
You talk
certain.
to anybody who's worked in corporate America,
Yeah,
and they will start nodding, and like, especially now,
yeah.
we are coming to like a point where it's just everyone's fed up.
Oh yeah, and it's really interesting, right? Because I wonder how it's going to tip, right? I think, and to your point earlier, Mike. So some folks might hear what you're saying and go, "All right, I'm going to try this, even if I'm not at the top. I'm just going to try it and see." And you might create a little bubble that kind of works for a while, right? And maybe if you're lucky, it gets a little bit contagious. And maybe it works out like an example you gave earlier, Joe, where it happens to have the right kind of people in the mix who don't really want this and it expands. But for a lot of folks, you may try this and you may bump up against something because it's not coming from the top. And
Yeah.
and I think like that that frustration that everybody's feeling and that distrust of HR, I mean, eventually, like something needs to come all the way through the system, right? Where I can believe that if somebody's not sort of living up to the mandate, be a servant leader, that I have a way of talking about it, whatever that is. There's some process in place. I mean, so I'm curious, for you guys with this book, how do you get the folks who are sitting in the big boardrooms? Like, how are you thinking about getting them to read this book and think about it? Are there certain types of people you're trying to target? Like, who's the audience ultimately? All of us can benefit from this, but if change the big levers at the top, how do you get some of those folks to pay attention and
Yeah. Can I
take it to
take that
heart?
one, Mike?
I was hoping you would.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the things that's key here is that, and it's a different thing with our book than what's out there, is I really want to thank Dean Barker, who was a former executive at United Health Group. He asked me to come in to his leadership planning forum, a workshop in Phoenix, Arizona a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and implement servant leadership, make it practical in his organization.
Yeah.
And he asked a question during that session, one of the days, and he said, it strikes me that servant leadership is very transactional in nature.
Mm.
Because if I'm doing all the right things as a servant leader, I still need someone to be receiving and responding and supporting what I'm doing. I'm not doing that in a vacuum.
Right.
And that was very intriguing for me. And I don't really think there's a lot out there in the market that talks about that. So we
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time in this book exploring that and breaking it down as far as what teams can do to really support their leaders who are trying to
Mm-hmm.
pivot more to be servant leaders, what they
Yeah.
can do and things they can look for, practical suggestions on how to support them, etc. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
we talk about that. But I think that one of the things that, to more directly answer your question, Dean, is there's so much data out there already about the efficacy of servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of numbers. I mean, I'm sitting on some right now. Let me just share a couple of them.
Okay.
Uh, the 10-year stock returns for servant-led companies is 24.2%, as opposed to 10.8% for the Standard and Poor's
Okay.
companies. So it's more than double. There's revenue growth at one company when they bought a company and pivoted to servant leadership, their revenue grew 18 times. And the only thing they changed was they built a foundation in the new company that they acquired on servant leadership. I
Okay.
know back in '98, myself, hits very close to home. I started a tech startup with three other people. We
Mm-hmm.
decided to make it a people first company all
Yeah.
around, and we knew we were going to take some financial hits in supporting that. We
Mm-hmm.
did it. And in when we started, we had a business valuation of $6,000 based on the value of what we had started.
Mm-hmm.
2.5 years later, we had two CPA firms come in and do business valuations on what we had built, and
Mm-hmm.
it was 30 million.
Hmm.
That's
Okay.
in 2.5 years. And then we were acquired by a company.
Yeah.
So people first, it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
And it does violate a lot of things that traditional corporations are after. But
Yeah.
if executives can see, if they,
Yeah.
we can put them in a place to see the numbers and then allow experiments to happen that are
Hmm.
controlled, that are based on like lean startup, for example,
Yeah.
the hypothesis and doing an MVP, that kind of thing. And they can just start seeing things that they can do. What a CIO once I worked for said, nail it before you scale it.
I love that. And I think what I'm hearing there a little though, and it's bringing up a question for me because, okay, let's say I'm sold, right? I love this idea.
Okay.
How long is it going to take? Like to implement this servant leadership model, the practical servant leadership model.
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
Well, it depends on what you're measuring,
Okay.
but you can start it today. You can start it Monday morning and
Hmm.
just start building on some pivoted practices to start building trust, creating more margin and psychological safety for your team to
Yeah.
play and innovate. Dr. Stuart Brown, the founder of the National Institute for Play,
Hmm.
he said the opposite of play is not work. The opposite of play is depression. And so we need to support people's need to innovate and play. And there's some things you can do right away to just start doing that. I mean,
Hmm.
carving out margin for your team so that they can actually think about what they're doing, not just be scrambling to try to hit deadlines.
Yeah. Okay. So, so I start doing that.
It's culture change in the end.
Yeah.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is.
So
Yeah.
culture
And
change in my
culture
head,
change.
like the scary part of it is like it sounds really long because it is, right? Like meaning you can do things immediately and you might start seeing effect, but when is it implemented? Let's just say like if I'm a fairly large organization and I do this, what like is it 2 years you think? Like where it's fully implemented?
So, I mean, I'd say it depends on where you're starting
Yeah.
in part.
Yeah.
If you're in a really toxic organization with low trust,
Yeah.
it's going to take longer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, because culture change involves changing people. They're
Yeah.
just going to be people who don't have the
Don't buy
mindset to
into
do
it. They
this.
don't. Yeah.
And you've got to do it from the top,
Yeah.
layer by layer. And so, I mean, to do it, but it's the long-term value. That's the thing that you're
Yeah.
getting out of this.
Yeah.
You're building a workforce that, that has experience,
Yeah.
that, you're not just bringing new people all the time. I mean,
Hmm.
and there's so many different costs that, like I was thinking about your question earlier about how do you get someone, what's going to make them do this, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's things like we showed them in one role, psychological safety at the department level
Hmm.
from the survey measure. Okay.
Yeah.
Departments in the lowest third of psychological safety, they had something like 2 times the number of harassment and discrimination claims.
Mm.
They had 2 times the voluntary turnover rate of other groups.
Hmm.
And they also had 1.7 times net movement ratio, meaning
Yeah.
many more people came to their department than left,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
I mean, there's so many things that just think about people in a job where they're terrified to do anything that could be wrong and they don't want to get in trouble versus someone who feels like, you know what, that's the right thing to do for the customer. I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many ways and in every day that people are not contributing in ways that they could or costing rather than adding.
Yeah.
And we see things like increasing unionization. We see
Hmm.
things like I think it's the 20 somethings that Gen Z is going to be the one who changes it. They're
Yeah.
like, you want me to work like 80 hours a week for
Right.
$20,000 a year?
Yeah.
That's
Screw you.
crazy. No,
Screw
I'm not
you.
doing that.
I'll
You
just,
know,
yeah, I'll find another way. Yeah.
you have people getting 2 jobs,
Yeah.
working full time remotely.
Right.
You have people having fake contractors that they're
Mm.
paying.
Mm.
I think what's going to make them want to do it is just continuing to see how when you have such a poor contract with employees,
Yeah.
this is going to continue to get worse over time.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like we're, like you mentioned, we're sort of at that almost inflection point right now. And it seems almost the natural end to the Jack Welch way, right? It seems inevitable that eventually you're scraping so much that there's nothing left in us as people,
Exactly.
right? And there's really not much more to scrape anyway. So when you're scraping, you're cutting away the meat,
People are at the
right?
point where they're like, you know what? F it. I don't
Yeah.
give a shit anymore.
Yeah. And it's not even serving like the companies ultimately, and it's definitely not sort of serving society, right? Like I hear a lot of people saying like, America needs to build things again. And I'm like, well, it's hard to build things when you're scraping away your capacity to do so constantly because of the system that we're all connected to, right? And so what I see in what you guys are bringing to the foreground here is like actually like it not only shows up in how I can show up for my team, for my company, for whatever, but it's the way forward for the whole thing. Meaning if we want the whole thing to actually serve humanity and create more stuff and build things and do the kinds of things we want to do, the way we're going, I mean, we see it. It's a 10,000 layoffs here, 50,000 layoffs here. Like we're just
It's
trimming away
consolidation
everything.
of power and
Yeah.
money.
Right. And
1%
eventually
of the
there's nothing
population
left.
in the US now has 90% of the wealth.
Yeah.
The more that continues, the less
Yeah.
employees we'll have, and the more it will be a one-sided. Same
Yeah.
thing with our laws, and
Yeah.
that's why the machine owns us thing. I
Right.
completely.
And
Another
then who
thing he said
buys
that I
anything
love.
though? That's the crazy thing. Like at some point, who the hell's buying anything if everybody's being like
No one
destroyed
has
by this,
right.
right?
He also said you need to absorb inefficiency, Nick, to
Yeah.
gain trust.
I love that
Right.
line. Yeah.
That is brilliant because
Yeah.
that is exactly what certain leadership, you have to absorb some inefficiency to gain humanity
Yeah.
and to ensure that people feel like they're a part of something. They're not a pair of hands that you're just crushing
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And look, we learned in 1917, Frederick Hawthorne studies that when people think someone is actually gives a shit, that they're
Yeah.
going to improve, they're going to
Yeah.
work hard.
Yeah.
And yet
And
we
yet we,
still can't adopt that form of leadership except for some very special,
yeah.
people like this guy, Bob Chapman, who led Barrett Wemiller, who said, I'm just not going to do it that way.
Yeah.
You know,
And there,
yeah, you know what's interesting is that as I talk to people out in the marketplace about the book, if I'm talking to people that are like in their 50s or so, and in business, they're like, "Oh yeah, great, I hope that works out for you." When I talk to people that are like 20 to 25 to 30, they're like, "Wow, tell me more about that. That sounds awesome. I want to
yeah.
learn that. How can I read something or let me know when the book's ready?" I
Yeah.
mean, they're very enthusiastic about this.
Of
And they
course.
don't want to work for corporate America anymore. They're not going to do it.
No, they're not. A lot of them aren't. And I think, the key here, I think, and this is why I'm grateful to be talking to you guys and hopefully getting a sliver of people to listen to this, because as much as the 20 and 30 somethings are excited about it, we need to, the people with the gray need to be hearing this. Enough of them do, right? To at least start to say, I'm willing I'm willing to bring this in. And yeah, I'm not expecting some panacea, but it's like, let's see some folks recognize it. And then it does start to shift not just the culture of the company, but maybe the way we think about work culture in general does start to like crack open a door to at least an alternate path. Some people are going to
Yeah.
want to choose the same path, but if some others say, hey, here's another path, and then the 20 and 30 somethings become the future leaders of those organizations, right? Because they go, I'll work for you, right? Like, of course they would. I mean, if you guys showed up in a company and you're like, we're doing this whole servant leadership thing, we're building this thing, that's what 20 and 30 somethings are clamoring for, right?
Yeah, they are.
Right?
And so we're hoping that the book is something that leaders can take and absorb and digest in their own safe space.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, aside from the lights on them, aside from being on stage,
Yeah.
they can just take and read it at night, as they go to sleep or something.
Mhm.
And then over time, hopefully they say, I think I really need to check this out.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is kind of a metaphor for actually making servant leadership practical, which
Mhm.
is people on their team that they respect say, you need to read this.
Yeah. 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 Who has their ear? Who are they willing to listen
Yeah.
to? Yeah. So I'm curious I was kind of going off on my little rant about the big picture impact of this, because that's just where my brain likes to go. I'm curious for you guys, like, as you're putting this book out into the world in the next couple of weeks, what's the impact you hope it has? Either one of you guys jump in
I'm going to let
first.
Joe go first because he's the first author. I'm really a contributor.
Got it.
Yeah, well, I hope it really shakes people up to really have hope
Yeah.
that there's a different and better way. Because we are so entrenched in the old way of doing things in the corporate structure that people just think it's gravity. They think this is just how it has to be.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't have to be. And then they actually start trying some of the things that the book is advocating.
Mm-hmm.
So if we have enough of that and we have a groundswell, we have grassroots, it's going to create an environment where the emperor is going to be standing there in their underwear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Why aren't you tracking to this? Well, ironically, too, the people that probably most need to read this book are the ones that are least likely to read it. They don't really care. They don't want to.
Yeah.
Trying to just really shake things up,
Yeah.
and help people have a better way with more hope and equip them to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And to be fair, like, I think it's okay if the folks who need it most don't read it at first. Right.
Yeah.
Because I think the only way they tip is if they are there with their underwear on. Like, I think it has to be awkward and uncomfortable for them to keep doing what they're doing. But that said, we've all talked to tons of leaders who really just don't want this current system. No. They don't. They feel trapped in it. You just feel like even at the top levels, you can feel like, oh my God, I have to behave in ways that I'm really not comfortable with. If some of those folks
and the legitimate concern they have is I have 30 years in business, they would say, and I am now an EVP.
Right.
And I got that way by being a dictator and a jerk.
Yeah.
Why should I change now? Look at what it's got me by being the way I am now.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
It is a good question.
But it's why we need to focus on the younger generation, because this is hard and concrete we're dealing with. You're not going to bust that up and change the whole paradigm and change everything overnight.
It's going to take time. What I would say for those folks who are 30 years in is it's more of a legacy question, and it's more of a for many folks, and I put myself in this category, like, you get to a certain point in your life and you look at it differently, right?
Yes.
What am I doing?
That's why we have legacy in the book.
Yeah, like, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Right? You eventually ask yourself that question. Not everybody. If you're full psychopath, you're probably not asking yourself that question.
Right.
But if you're a normal human, even if you've been behaving a certain way for 30 years, you're showing up and going, what is this again?
Yeah.
And then so your book shows up and it gives me at least an entree. Yeah.
Yeah. In the servant leadership training I did, I would ask people to form a word cloud the first thing in the session. And it was describe the best leader you've ever, or the best manager you've ever worked for in one word.
Interesting.
And nothing that they shared across the dozens and dozens of times I delivered this, nothing had anything to do with business.
Yeah.
It was all character issues. They had integrity. They listened. They had empathy. They really sacrificed for me. Things like that. And so the legacy question, TJ, absolutely right on. Yeah. It's when you have people that have worked for you for years and they have their own teams, what part of you do you want them to be extending into their team?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that.
One other, like, in terms of it changing, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
For 40 years now, not 40, maybe 30 years, business schools have been touting Welch-like tactics as the ideal. In that book that I mentioned, David Gellis, 13 of 19 Welch acolytes from GE went on to destroy companies as CEO.
Wow.
And so this guy who's been put on a pedestal as the best CEO of all time, and by the way, GE had great stock returns for 20 years.
Right.
It didn't take too long after he left for that whole thing to implode, because they took a company that had great products and essentially made it a bank.
Yeah.
So, that other way, you're going to get short-term gains. We know that. You want get something done right away, you can beat the shit out of people and get it done.
Yeah.
you want something to build value over time, that is not the way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want
Right.
something lasting, it's a different way.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's, I believe it's where it's a, we need people who are inspired to do something different, true leaders
Yeah.
that want to change this. And I think there are plenty of people in our age group that are, as George Carlin said, they're cynics. If you scratch them, you'll find they're a disappointed idealist because they've been watching this for years and seeing it
Yeah.
get worse and worse, the toxicity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think people are ready for it.
I think they
Yeah.
are. And I think, as you were talking, Mike, it almost felt like a weird, this is my weird reaction, but like sort of there's a sort of spiritual awakening here. And I don't mean religious specifically, but I just mean like
Humanity. It's
like
like
humanity. Who are we? What are we doing? Why are we here? Like if you really like soak in those questions for a little bit, it makes it a lot harder to sit in that corner office and show up the way the current system is asking you to show up. And that then I think invites you to go, well, what is a different way? What might it be? And, if a handful of those folks stumble upon your book, that's already a start as far as I'm concerned. So I know I've been kind of throwing a lot of questions at you guys. I'm curious for either of you, if you have a question you'd like to spit back at the audience related to this stuff.
Joe, you
I
had
already said mine. I already said mine.
You want? Okay.
Go
Which
ahead.
one?
what was it?
It was if you have someone that's been on your team have their own team, 20 years from now, what part of you do you want them to extend to their team?
Yeah, I love that question. Yeah. That's connecting into that sort of spiritual humanity idea too. Like what are we leaving? What about you, Mike? Do you have anything?
Um, I would say I would love to know for the people that are, those middle to high level leaders in the kinds of environments we're talking about.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to make them do something different and buck the system?
Yeah.
Because what happens is there's the fear in the middle. These people who are VPs or whatever, they make a lot of money. They're comfortable. They've got their beach house or lake house, and they're like, I don't want to have to go find another job. May have to move cities.
Yeah.
Like, could you just do it so I could not have to,
Yeah.
And in the end, they are creating the same outcomes as the narcissists that are. So people need to say, I hope people are inspired. I'd like to say, but what's it going to take to make you not go along and play that game?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a hard question, but a worthy question. Yeah.
And one more thing quick. If I'm speaking in a group, there's a little thing that I like to do where it's like all I say is, boy, my mouth is so dry. And then I just keep going. And someone in the audience will go get me a glass of water.
Yeah.
And I will say, everybody watch this right there. That's leadership.
Yeah.
That's leadership. They were not asked. They saw a need. Right. They made this vulnerable by being visible. And they met the need because they wanted to help and serve. That is leadership. Anybody can do that. Don't wait for a role, a position, a raise, promotion.
Yeah.
I shoot baskets with my son here and there at our Lifetime Fitness. And when it's late, close to them closing, before we leave, I'll go around the gym and clean up the balls and put them back on the rack. And my son was like, why are you doing that? And I was like, because someone's going to come out here and they have to do it anyway. And we're down here. We might as well just send all the balls back there and help out. Right. It's just, and I was like, it's just a goodwill thing. It's like trying to just do something nice for them, and he's like, oh, yeah, I got it. It's like, and I think about that all the time. You could so easily do just a little bit each day that passes along some positivity instead of negativity.
Yeah.
It's just not that hard.
It really isn't. And yet sometimes it feels that way. And I think
partly
because we're trapped in all this crap.
It took me literally, TJ, it took me a year after my last job to uncoil and feel like
person again.
My relationships with my kids are just amazing since then because I can think and process, and I'm not like a rubber band that's like boiled up and ready to.
I know, and there's so many of us who are feeling.
And it shouldn't be like that.
It should not be
It
like
shouldn't
that.
have
It
to be
doesn't
like that.
have to be like that, I think is your biggest takeaway. It doesn't, we don't have to be this way to have thriving companies. It
Right.
really feels like it's actually that simple. It's maybe not
And there's
easy.
evidence, in fact, that you will have a thriving company if you really put in the effort to do
Yeah.
it the other way.
Yeah,
Yep.
Again,
absolutely.
look up Barry Webmiller is the name of the company. Bob
Yeah.
Chapman was the CEO.
Yeah, I'll
And
definitely add
it's
that
inspirational.
into the show notes so people can check it out. I know I asked you this previously when you were both on, but I'm curious if either of you have a slightly updated perspective on if you waved a magic wand and you could just fully desuckify the world of work. What does it look like?
Joe,
Yeah.
I think mine overlaps with yours.
Yeah. I think when people know that their managers care for them and their managers are always asking, how can I serve and support you?
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, when companies, like I said before, when companies see their people not as their best resources, but as their best work,
Mm-hmm.
that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And really helping people feel safe and encouraging them, not just allowing, but encouraging them to have fun and to innovate and play and break
Yeah.
stuff and laugh
Absolutely.
about it and learn and be the people they are. They're bringing their whole selves to work. They don't have to check their soul at the door.
Yeah. No severance model here. Yeah.
Yeah, like the graffiti at a London tube station. I wonder what my soul does all day while I'm at work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
I'd just say, yeah, all the basic stuff except, um, as I said earlier, a place where leaders protect their people's time like it's their own.
Yeah. I really
So
love that concept because we're either deliberately blind to it or unintentionally
you're
blind
either
to it.
creating nonsense and exhausting people, or you're saying, you know what, let's be smart and not, you know,
Yeah.
let's make sure we don't build the eighth wonder of the world when we need like a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
Because the person that they ask to get it is going to be motivated to deliver the
To
eighth
do
wonder
the
of the
eighth wonder,
world.
of course. Yeah.
They are going to look good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So understand what happens when you ask people to do things and understand that they're going to act nuts because you're high level, and make sure that they understand that you want them to spend a reasonable amount of time
Yeah.
and get them what they need, but not more than that, and not
Yeah.
to crush people's souls doing it.
That's such a good point about the impact of your words when you hold power, and to really know that and then figure out how you can speak in a way that acknowledges that so that you can recognize, like, yeah, I say anything and people jump. Like,
They're
okay,
going to jump. They're
yeah,
going to run, not
yeah,
walk to 7 teams and get them all
yeah,
to do a different version.
right.
So it's
And I may
awesome.
not even want that at all. Like, I
Right.
literally just don't have time to do the one page in the slide that I'm asking you to do. And if you did it in 5 minutes, I wouldn't care. Like, but yeah, instead, I'm going to create a
I
whole new
agree. There's some
territory.
that just don't think about it. And then there are
Yeah,
some who are like,
it's kind
whatever,
of,
I'll get a good product.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I know I asked you this last time as well. I'm curious if you have any interest in doing a sound effect like I have in my show. I don't even remember what your guys' sounds were, but
I couldn't remember either. And I'm hoping I'm not doing that. I couldn't come up with one related to servant leadership. I mean, it'd be like,
yeah.
when you make a fart noise.
Yeah, do it.
Now, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go with 80s Jersey, 80s, or late 80s, early 90s Jersey.
I'm already with
Jersey
you.
Boys stuff. I got something. I'm thinking
Okay.
about. I'll do it whenever. Do I just do it?
Yeah, do it now. What do we got?
Oh gosh, I really did it good this time.
I love that. Oh my God. That takes me back in the best way. What about you, Joe? You got any sounds?
Well, I'm going to have to say that it's also a little bit of a visual element to it. But
Okay.
yes, I do sound it. I don't know if many people know this, but I have a double jointed nose.
Okay.
So I'll show you what that looks like here. You just, I have to get it right here for some.
Oh my God.
Wow. That is freaky as heck, but a good party trick.
Tell him that time that you told Mike Tyson that he was a wimp. And then that's how you got that nose.
Oh my
Right,
God.
that's how I got the nose.
That explains everything. Oh my
11
God.
years old.
That's great. Well, both of those will find their way into the show. I appreciate that, guys. So
By the way,
last thing,
the trick is my thumbnails. If you didn't catch on to that,
I didn't,
yeah,
but
they
whatever.
can't see it.
I was
See
wondering.
it. That's all good.
I love it. The magician revealing his secrets. I like it. So my last question for you guys, this has been so much fun, is just how do people track down this book, find out about it, pre-order it, whatever it is? How are they ultimately going to find out about what you're doing and stay on top of the practical servant leadership idea?
Well, I'd say practicalsl.com is our website,
Okay.
and it'll be available on all formats pretty soon. You know, Amazon. I'm going to be recording the Audible version pretty soon, and Kindle, ebook, a hardback or hardbound paperback.
Okay.
All that's pretty soon. But Practical SL is the website, and that's how to track to see, you know, status of things. And
Cool.
we're not really pre-ordering anymore,
Okay.
but we'll be publishing pretty quickly here.
Okay.
And also, I should mention that for people that buy it, they're going to get a code. They're going to be able to go on the website and read my content and also Mike's content extra that we did in the book.
Cool.
And also go on and engage with AI right on the website and ask it questions about, hey, I'm trying to solve for this. What do I do? And it'll have the full manuscript of the book, all the research behind it, and it'll actually guide them through a process of things they can try.
Interesting. Okay. That sounds really cool. I'll point people towards that. I'll also give people ways to connect with you guys on LinkedIn if anybody's wanting to learn more about this whole concept, because I know it's more than just this conversation. There's deeper dives that are going to need to happen to really get into it along with the book. So
I would love to connect with anyone who wants to connect for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
that's great.
Joe and Mike, thank you guys for coming on the show. This was awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. It was fun.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the DesuckifyWork podcast. And a huge thanks to Joe and Mike for bringing a hopeful outlook and real solutions to the show. You can follow Joe and Mike on LinkedIn and check out practicalsl.com to learn more about their book and how to be a people-first leader. If you enjoyed the conversation and would like to find some calm in the chaos of work, I invite you to schedule a free half-hour discovery session. Type meow in the calendar invite, and I'll also send you a free DesuckifyWork t-shirt. Bye, everyone!